Hey, Cynthia, how are you?
Hello, good morning. Can you hear me?
I can, but you're very squeaky. Why is that?
Okay. Hold on a minute. I'm actually just pulling into my work parking lot.
Okay.
Because I'm going to have to go right into work when I finish. So I'm going to have better service in just a second.
That's fine. I'm recording this part, by the way, and it may stay in, just so you're aware.
Okay. I'm all right with that, but I'm trying to get my sound better. Am I okay?
You're not at the moment.
Okay.
So are you wearing a headset?
I am.
Is it Bluetooth?
It is?
Yeah. It's not going through your car, right? It's just from the phone to you.
That's what I'm wondering. If it might be going through my car. I'm literally pulling in my parking lot right now.
Take your time. Take your time. I'm having fun.
We're gonna be okay.
Don't worry.
In a second.
I have a ton of energy. I haven't recorded in a week, so.
Oh, excellent! You've had a little bit of a break.
Yes, that'll either be great for you or horrible for you. We'll find out in a second.
Okay, that's right. So I'm parked. So now let me figure out my sound because I do think it's going through my car.
It's fine.
So let me get it on my headset instead.
I appreciate the effort. I really do. It sounds like
I know you're pretty picky about your sound.
Well, it sounds like you're arriving an hour early for work so that you can sit in your car and do this, and I appreciate that.
Okay, I am. That is exactly so that I can do everything. Is that any better?
Not only is it amazing, but the transition was kind of magical. And this is episode 591 of the Juicebox Podcast. On the podcast today, I'll be talking to Cynthia. She is the mother of a teenager living with type 1 diabetes. And while we're speaking to each other, if you would remember that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise, I would really appreciate it. Further, don't forget that you should always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. Have type 1 diabetes? Or care for someone who does? Do you also live in the United States? Well, then I've got a little something for you to do. Head over to t1dexchange.org/juicebox and take the survey. Help type 1 diabetes research, help the podcast, help other people living with type 1. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Takes less than 10 minutes. It's completely HIPAA compliant and absolutely anonymous. Just one more music swell, and then we'll get to the program. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Today's podcast is also sponsored by the Dexcom G6 Continuous Glucose Monitor. Dexcom.com/juicebox is where you'll learn more and get started. There are links in the show notes and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to these and all of the sponsors.
So I'm Cynthia. I am the mother of a daughter who was diagnosed with type 1 at about 15 and a half years old. It's now been 3 years.
Wow. So is she out of the house?
She's not. She's actually a really old senior. So she just graduated.
Gotcha.
Just in the last week.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Congratulations as you shift to spending an enormous amount of money to send her to college someday.
Exactly. That's right where we're at. So
super
we're hoping
exciting.
I think she's actually going to stick around for another year and do the local school. So that'll be good.
Excellent. I think that's amazing. I offered my son a large sum of money to go to a local college.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. My other children didn't. She's my third. She's my youngest. And so, yes, at least in this way, she's saving me a little bit.
I don't imagine that people who don't have children, like, I know it's, you think it, like, oh, college is expensive, but that's not it. It's, you struggle to get through life month to month to month, and then suddenly someone lays a bill on top of you that is, you know, commiserate to your mortgage, you know what I mean? And it's every month, there's no extra money coming in, and somehow you make it work or you don't. Like, I don't know how, where you take out a ton of loans.
Right.
It's a massive stress at the end of your life when your knees start hurting and you're like, oh, I'm not even going to make it to the end of this. It's terrible.
Sure.
Yeah. And then they say, like, what are you going to go to college for? Like, I don't know. You're like, you don't know. And you understand why they say that, but you'd like a little more good feeling when you're chucking your money out the window. So
exactly.
Anyway, are we going to say her name?
Maybe not.
We don't have to. Your daughter.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, my daughter.
Okay. So she's your youngest of 3. Are there any
Correct.
other autoimmune issues within the family?
Not in our immediate family, and nobody with type 1, but it's sort of, as you start looking, we're realizing that there are a lot of autoimmune in extended family. We've got some Crohn's, we've got some lots of different things, but no type 1.
When Uncle Billy poops a lot, you don't think that 20 years later your kid's going to get diabetes.
Exactly. Right.
Where does Billy go during Thanksgiving all the time? I don't know. He's just always gone. And then, you're 20 years old, bringing your date home, and who knew, But
right.
it really is. I think everybody listening should do that deep dive on their family. I met a man this week while I was away, and how did this happen? Oh, we had to tell him that my son had a thyroid issue that kind of popped up out of nowhere and that we'd gotten it worked out. And it made the man say, oh, my mom's thyroid, has a, he's like, I don't know what it's called. She's like, but she takes medicine for her thyroid. And I said, oh, are there any other autoimmune things in your family? And he goes, and he starts listing a couple things. And he says, oh, and my wife has celiac. And I thought, do I tell this guy if he ever has a baby one day and it pees a lot that he should check for type 1? You know what I mean? Like, I had that thought,
right.
So
yeah.
Tell me a little bit about her diagnosis.
Well, she was sick for a long, long time. So she was a freshman in high school, and she was just going through a lot of feeling sick and feeling super tired. So we actually had thought she was depressed.
Okay.
So we were getting her therapy. She was really struggling in school. She couldn't stay awake, seeking lots of kind of different, not even ever once crossing our mind that maybe her blood sugar was high. So she'd been to the doctor so many times. And then finally one weekend did have all those telltale signs. And, I'd been doing a lot of Googling for many months trying to figure out what was wrong with her.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very clear to me this one night, I think it was a Thursday night, that I just was like, okay, we're going to the doctor tomorrow. I'm going to tell him to check her blood sugar. Pretty sure she's got diabetes. So it was sort of a strange relief when she was diagnosed, because it was good to have an answer and to think, okay, now we've figured out all of, our problems, and now it's going to be fine.
Can I ask you?
So we wish that was the case, but
yeah. How long did that process take?
I would say about 6 months.
And when you suggested therapy to your daughter, did she say, yeah, it's possible I'm depressed, or did she say, I'm not depressed, and you just persevered?
She did say she didn't think she was depressed, but honestly, her symptoms were very depression.
Yeah.
Like, she couldn't get out of bed. She had no desire to do anything. She was just exhausted all the time. And what's funny is she's an athlete, and she at that time was competing at a very high level,
mm-hmm.
and she could somehow drag herself to practice and get going. And once she got going, she'd be fine. And so now I realize what was happening is her blood sugar was dropping as she was exercising.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Isn't it crazy?
And then she would feel good and come home and be okay for a little while.
Yeah.
And then this cycle would repeat itself.
I was struck with the thought just now that my life is odd, that people say things about their health, and I'm like, oh my God, isn't that interesting? Where I should, I don't know why I'm not horrified by it. I think that's incredible. Like, that you could use hindsight like that and look back and from where you came and her age, right? Like, are you depressed? Well, I don't know. I am tired more often than usual. I've heard people say it's hard to get up when you're depressed. She doesn't know the difference. And and would she even know if she, you know what I mean? If she was depressed, would she know she was depressed? And
correct.
Fascinating. Yeah. That's really fascinating. And the therapist never said, well, you know, while we're doing this, maybe go get a CBC or something like that just to see if she's ill.
You know, we actually had only gone to one therapy session, I think, at that time, and she just didn't feel like it. We hadn't found it. She's gone to more therapy since then, believe me. But at the time, she hadn't found a good fit. So she'd gone to somebody, and it didn't really go well. So we kind of were, you know, doing other things. And
yeah, well, you went to a mechanic and asked him how to bake a cake. So
right, yeah. Exactly. So, and I mean, we, in that time also, we brought her to the doctor probably 3 different times. They diagnosed her with sinus infection and ear infection. We're like, none of that makes sense.
Well, I want to give you a lot of props for persevering behind the scenes, because I know what that feels like. And I'd like you to tell me a little bit about how it was for you, that feeling that there was something wrong. You weren't coming up with an answer. And I'm imagining every free moment of your life, you were digging everywhere you could on the internet, trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Scary or?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, I was thinking the worst in some ways. She was a different person from who she had been. And also had become, I mean, her moods she was having horrible mood swings. So, you know, you think typical teenager, but she was my 3rd teenager. It wasn't typical. It was unusual.
How far into those? I'm sorry. Go. I cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask how far into those 6 months till you started thinking physical and not mental.
I mean, I think we were actually looking for physical more towards the beginning, and then thinking, okay, well, maybe if there's nothing physical to explain it, it is something more like a depression or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then swinging back and forth, just looking anywhere we could try and figure out. And in the end, I mean, when she finally was diagnosed, you know, her blood sugar was like 400. Not that I mean, that's extremely high, and her A1C was in the low 12s. Okay.
Had been going on for a while.
She wasn't, it'd been going on a long time, but it wasn't, and she was never in DKA. Our doctors told us we probably actually found it pretty early.
And the running around kept you kind of in the game, so to speak.
I think the fact that she was so active physically was really what prolonged it.
Wow. Well, some good luck. You know,
right?
Something's got to go right once in a while.
I guess.
You guess. I know it's tough when you're looking for those silver linings in so many clouds, and you find one. You're like, this isn't a huge one, but I'm going to take it as a win.
Right.
Well, okay. So she gets back. You know, you figure it out. Sounds like you got ahead of it a little bit, and they treat how? Like, are you in the? It doesn't sound like you might were in the hospital very long. Even.
No, we were. We did do 3 days in the hospital, and that was a big bummer. But like I said, it was sort of a relief that we knew it was wrong, and we're thinking, okay, we got her on insulin. Everything's going to be okay now. Mm-hmm. And let's see, we did leave with pens. And we had her on a Dexcom within weeks, maybe 3 weeks. G6 had just come out. So we were one of the first people to get G6.
Was that through your looking into it or through the doctors?
Absolutely. 100% it was from us.
Okay. And that seemed more important than a pump to you initially?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you remember back to why?
Her insulin needs were very low at the beginning. In fact, she probably went through that whole summer. She was diagnosed in May. She probably went through that whole summer with just taking long acting.
Okay. I see. Yeah. So there was still a honeymoon period that went for a while.
For sure. Okay. Exactly. And again, and that summer she was very, very active. She was in sports camps all day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I just think so. She was really only taking a couple of units of, I think she was taking Levemir at the time.
But to dig into that question a little more, not knowing very much about diabetes at all, seeing what you saw in the beginning when you realized there was a thing she could wear that would pump her insulin and stop her from taking injections, and a thing that she could wear that would show you her blood sugar in real time. Do you remember what made you think, let's get the CGM right now?
I mean, yeah, just that knowledge and I guess fear, the fear of going low. She did within, they sent her home on, Levemir and Humalog. And of course I went back to work, and then she's home like the next, 1 or 2 days after she had come home, and she ate something and she did all the math right. She's 15 and a half and did her injection and ate and then tested. This was before she got the Dexcom, and she was in the 40s. She sent me a picture of this, of her CGM, or no, it wasn't a CGM. What are they called?
The meter.
Her meter. Yeah. And she's sitting there trying to unwrap Starburst and eat her 3 Starbursts, which is what they had recommended to her. And it was a really scary time. And so I think having that, although we had ordered the Dexcom even before we left the hospital, but she had a few scary lows in the beginning that I think she maybe didn't even need the Humalog yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In that moment when she's unwrapping, isn't it funny, by the way, kids at this age, like she sent you a picture, like she could have just texted you, my blood sugar's 40. They're like, no, I hear posts with images get more likes.
Right. Yeah. She sends me a picture of the meter. Yes. And I'm at work and see this pop up on my phone and have an absolute panic attack.
How far from home is work?
I was about probably 20 minutes.
Did it make you feel like running out the door, or what did you?
I think by the time I saw it, I think I saw it as well as some other texts that she was okay by then.
Oh, good. Good. I one time couldn't get a hold of Arden at school, and I made it all the way through the front door of the school.
Okay.
And then she texted me back, and she's like, I took care of it. And I looked the lady in the face, like through the little window. The post 9/11 getting into a public school is different than
right.
So I'm looking through the little window, and I'm like, never mind. And I turned around and walked. I just left.
Okay.
But I had made it all the way from a shower. I was in the shower and showered, dried, ran out the door, probably half dressed, driving through town. And then Arden's like, I'm good. And I was like, okay. And then I just turned around and left. But it's the
I've definitely done that before as well.
Yeah. It's frightening sometimes.
It's frightening.
So you said a second ago that she's done way more therapy since then. So was it not like a brochure transition into type 1 diabetes? Yeah,
not really. She's definitely struggled. And knowing her, I don't know if it's 100% the diabetes, but that's definitely been a part of her mental health struggle.
Yeah. Does the struggle come, like what form does it come in? Is it pushing back against type 1? Is it like I don't want this, and you can't bring yourself to just kind of say, all right, I have diabetes? Is it that she feels different? Do you know what the underpinnings are?
I think it's all of that you just said. Yeah, she doesn't want to feel different. She wears her diabetes tech showing and all her friends. She doesn't hide it, but she doesn't want to take care of it. And then, just this feeling of wanting to be free and grow up. And I think she feels I know she feels very smothered by me trying to take care of it.
Yeah. Doesn't want to take care of it and does anyway, or doesn't, and it's a problem. Gvoke HypoPen has no visible needle and is the first pre-mixed auto-injector of glucagon for very low blood sugar in adults and kids with diabetes, ages 2 and above. Not only is Gvoke HypoPen simple to administer, but it's simple to learn more about. All you have to do is go to gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used in patients with insulinoma or pheochromocytoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk. Now it's time to talk about the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. If you told me I could only tell you one thing about it, I guess I would say that the Dexcom tells you the speed and direction of your blood sugar. That, if I could only tell you one thing about it, that's what I would tell you. And I would think that would be enough for you to be interested in more. That it also tells you what your blood sugar is, well, that seems like a bonus to me. But direction and speed, yeah, that's the big deal right there. For instance, my daughter's blood sugar is 104 right now. We are about 2 hours past a meal at a bar, like a restaurant bar kind of. Now you're like, oh, this guy's taking his underage daughter to a bar. It's not a bar. It's a restaurant that has you know what I mean. She got bar food. She had nachos with like cheesesteak piled on top of it and French fries. And Arden's blood sugar is 104 at the moment. It is also trending down. I can see that on my cell phone. She's not even with me right now. So I look at the graph over the last couple of hours and I see where we came in, where we pre-bolus for Arden's meal. I can see later where the bolus got a little overwhelmed. We had it up a little bit. The information from the Dexcom allowed me to comfortably make a new bolus, which stopped a spike. And now she's leveled off and coming back down gently. I honestly don't know how I could have done that without the Dexcom G6. I think you should check it out at dexcom.com/juicebox. You can find out more or get started today. But I'm just going to tell you, if you have type 1, forget type 1. If you're using insulin, you should have a Dexcom. Dexcom Share and Follow are available for iPhone and Android, and you can have up to 10 followers. That could be your mother, your brother, your sister, your school nurse, your parents. A lot of different people could be in your corner if you want them to. And if you don't want that, you don't have to do that. Dexcom is nothing if it is not flexible. Okay, there's links in the show notes, links at juiceboxpodcast.com. I want to get back to Cynthia.
Doesn't want to take care of and kind of does anyway, which may just be because she so doesn't want to deal with me. It's easier to just take care of it than have your mom nagging you constantly to take care of it.
Cynthia going with the old battle axe version of parenting.
Right. I mean, we've tried it all. I've tried the bribery. I've tried, I'll pay you to do the whatever.
Discussions about her health, like understanding what comes if you don't manage.
Right. I mean, she's been told that. I think you can't really tell them that too many times because then it just kind of becomes
self-fulfilling.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will say, so I think the original reason I had emailed you just saying that I thought this was sort of an interesting topic is, so at the doctor, she is always applauded and looked up to as this amazing type 1. I think she's a patient that comes in and they're happy to see her and they applaud her A1Cs and they tell her she's doing amazing. And that's just been kind of my biggest frustration is because I'm sure she is doing better than a lot of their patients.
Mm-hmm.
But it's frustrating to me that there's so many little tiny things she could be doing better. And when they're 16 and they say, well, the doctor says I'm doing great, Mom, they don't want to listen to me.
I gotcha. All right.
Of how you could do better.
Let's find out if you're crazy or if she's young. This will be fun.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And I mean crazy in the most lovely sense of the word.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So tell me her A1C just so we have context.
So it was in the 12s when she was diagnosed, and then it went to 9, like a month later. But ever since then, it has always been in the 7s.
Okay. All right. So is this a scenario where you're seeing other people doing numbers lower than that, and you think we can get to this, but she won't listen?
Yes.
Interesting.
And she's just so close.
What
is
holds her
the
back?
thing. Well, it's mostly just, so she does a roller coaster, major roller coaster. She has very high highs and then she has low lows.
She's not pre-bolusing her meals.
She does not she refuses to pre-bolus. So that was one thing that I had a very hard conversation in the endo's office one time, because I thought, okay, I'll bring it up. And then of course the endo will back me up on it.
No, not all of them.
But then she didn't. And I said, because I think her A1C had gone up just a couple ticks. I think it had gone up to like 7.9, almost to 8. And so I had suggested, and I usually let the appointment be driven by my daughter and the endo, and I just sort of am there because that's how it needs to be. I mean, she was older when she was diagnosed. She really has to take control of this herself. But so I had just said, what if she takes her insulin earlier? Would that be helpful so she doesn't go so high? And the endo very quickly said, oh, I'm happy as long as she just takes it before the first bite of food goes in her mouth.
And did you say, you mother?
There's your first bleep of the day.
Yeah. Were you like, you son of a bitch, just shut up and get in line?
I wanted to. So I very quickly said, and what if the thing she's eating is a donut or a fast-acting carb?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, as long as she takes it before her first bite. So that was really frustrating because, I had been trying to get across the concept of pre-bolusing to her.
Mm-hmm.
And then the doctor just sort of almost made me look like the idiot. Doctor,
younger or older than 40?
Younger.
Really?
One of the reasons we chose her. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Does the doctor have type 1? I'm going to go with no, right?
No.
I see. Did you meet resistance in the car afterwards where your daughter was like, ha ha, I told you? Did you get any of that?
Maybe not right away, but yes.
Yeah.
Definitely a few times since that she always says, the doctor says that I don't have to take insulin until I eat. And then I often have to say, yes, but you should take it when you eat and not an hour after you eat when you're high. So
I have to tell you, I'm not speaking to your doctor directly, but anyone that's listening, if you are doing this, shame on you. Seriously. Like really. Like to tell a 16-year-old kid that her 8 A1C that, is almost 8 coming from 7 and you're doing great. I mean, doing great. What does that mean? Like those kids have no context for that. You've just given her a pass for everything. You've told her, that's your point earlier. Everything's fine. Don't worry about anything. You can ignore your mom. You can ignore everything. You're doing great.
Right.
That's it's dangerous and it's malpractice in my opinion. And you should be ashamed. And if you don't understand how insulin works, maybe find out or get a different job,
Right.
Don't tell a kid that they can eat a donut as they're bolusing and everything's going to be great. It's going
to be fine.
Yeah.
Right?
You can tell them they can eat a donut while they're bolusing and their blood sugar is going to get incredibly high and then likely crash down low later. And it's not going to kill you today. That'd be honest. But not great. I'm sorry. So how do you, well, I'm about to ask you a question I guess you don't have an answer to, but do you have a plan for getting through this? Getting through to her, I guess?
Oof. Yeah. I mean, I guess we just keep trying. And we do just the last week. She did put a pump on. So she's had the Omnipod and it's just collected dust for a long time. But she did decide to give it a try. And it seems like that's going a little bit better.
All right. So walk me through it. How did you approach her about it? What happened next, etc.?
She just had a series of really low lows. Mm-hmm. And because she would go high and then overcorrect, she'd do her rage bolus and then go way, way low. And so she had finally agreed that maybe that would be a better way to try and avoid all of these lows. So, and that it's been a little bit better. I still don't know that she's pre-bolusing, but for whatever reason, her body does react faster to insulin coming from the pump than it does when she was MDI.
Okay. Well, that's good, but not good enough, right? Like in your mind.
Right.
Yeah. And,
right.
And you know what the shame of it is that in her mind, at some point in the future, she'll agree with you. But how long will it take her to get to that point?
That's what I worry about, because I agree. I do think that she will.
Yeah.
I think she will get there, but I do worry about how many years it's going to take her to get there. And then I worry about our relationship.
Yeah. Well, say more about that. Like, what are your concerns?
Well, just that, I mean, we get along great. So our main issues that we ever have are always over diabetes.
Okay.
And so, and that she thinks I'm trying to control her. And, I mean, it's just difficult. And then when she's been MDI all these years. And so for many, many years, the first 2 years, probably about till she turned 18, we just every night, 10 p.m., we went and gave her long acting. And then when she turned 18, she's like, I'm going to do this myself. And we're like, okay, that's great. She needs to do it at some point. But then turns out as many nights that she was doing it, she also wasn't doing it. So she just would forget. Or
Cynthia, are you saying that 18-year-olds aren't incredibly responsible?
I am definitely saying that. Yeah.
I didn't know you were going to come out with such a strong stance today. That's amazing.
I know.
Yeah. A lot of people.
Can you believe it?
No, it's going to cause an uproar. Yeah. Well, I like the idea of I'm going to take care of it, but if I had to watch from a third party perspective, what I would think was she used her birthday as an adult, I made air quotes, to tell you have to leave her alone now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what she was trying to do. But my thing is this is not something, this is a non-negotiable to me. This is not something that I'm going to give you space on, is your health.
Do you struggle with thinking that if you push too hard, she'll just move out? Do you ever have that feeling?
Not at this point, because she really doesn't have the means to move out. Right. So
don't let her meet like somebody that has an apartment.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, I guess I do. Yeah. That is a little bit of a concern. Yeah.
I had one of those thoughts with my son once. Like he did something and I needed to do something back, and I thought, how far can I push this before he might just go, well, forget it then. And right. It's crazy because I thought, well, I do have to still pay for college. There's no way he's going to want to do that. So I have a little more time. I don't know if that sounds sinister to people who don't have children, but that's a real thing that happened to you. I turned 18. I'm an adult, which is such an arbitrary bull thing. It's not real.
It is.
Right. It's like you turn 21 and now suddenly you can binge drink and it'll be okay. Like what? You know what I mean? So right. Things like that don't happen overnight. I feel for you. And I wonder, away from diabetes, do you have any issues like this with communication or power cycles?
I don't think anything more than a typical.
Yeah.
Typical teenage power kid turning 18. Of course, they always think that they then should be allowed to do everything and anything, but
yeah, great.
Let
me see.
But definitely our main struggles are surrounding diabetes, which is very frustrating.
Yeah.
Because to me, this is just, again, it's a non-negotiable. It's you have to take care of your health. Like I will do everything that I can to make sure that you don't have any long-term problems because I just let you not take your insulin at night.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I agree with you. I wonder too, have you gone to her ever and said, look, I don't push you around on anything else. Like you don't see me trying to exert, like this is important in a way that maybe you can't appreciate at the moment. And, just look on other things. You have freedom here and here and here. I don't we're not telling you what to do all over your life. If this feels like that to you, instead of thinking I'm trying to be in charge of it, why don't you like help look at, can you look at it from my perspective?
Right.
But I don't know how well those conversations go. I've lately been talking a lot to Erica, and you guys will hear on the podcast, by the time this comes out, you'll have heard like another therapist who has type 1, who I've been talking about more of this kind of emotional stuff with. And it's all amazing when you hear it, like the ideas and the concepts of communication and everything. But I don't know how well it ever really works in practice, like in real life. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
It sounds good on Donahue.
Implementing, implementing those things. And she has gone to some therapies, and I've given some tools and different things, and implementing them is way harder than it seems like it would be.
Yeah.
Reading about them, listening to them, it all just sounds so great. Like that'll work so fabulous.
You know what it seems like is being a decent person is not the most human trait. I don't know if decent's the right word, but like communicating with people well, it's obvious, right? Like I think it's obvious to most people. And then doing it in the moment it's not the same thing. There's something else at play that keeps you from saying things the way you even mean them sometimes.
Right. And I feel like with this, there's so much emotion involved as well.
Right. And everything, I was saying this to my daughter's friends come over, and they get the weirdest conversations in my kitchen, but we were talking about like all the big, how people in their 16, 17, they talk about the big ideas in the world as if they've just, they're the first people that's noticed them. And it's a fun time to talk to people. And they were talking about race and politics and these big ideas. And I stopped them and I said, listen, everything's about power. Everything is about power. Somebody either is in power and trying to hold on to it, or someone is out of power and wants to be in power. And that is true in personal relationships as well. Like somebody's in power in a relationship, and everything is a power struggle. So, and for children, it's normal and obvious, right? Like you try to assert yourself a little bit. You're trying to break away from your parents. You start seeing, I don't know about you, Cynthia, but I'm slowing down a step. My kids see it. They're like, uh-oh, this old man, he's on his way out. Like I got better ideas. And, they start thinking, well, let me get my ideas into the game a little bit. But he's holding the purse strings, or, whatever else it ends up being. So you try to give them a ton of freedom. And in a normal growth situation, and people can raise their kids any way they want, but I'm a fan. Like, let them exert themselves. Let them try to insert their ideas. Sometimes it's really painful as a parent, like, oh gosh, like that might be right. You know what I mean? Like, wow, he might be smarter than me on this one. And to let that go is hard sometimes. But then this happens, and it's health. And that you don't feel like you have the time to let them learn how to be a human being. And what's it really going to take her? Let's be honest. 26? Is that about when you start to pull it together, you think? Your mid-20s?
Maybe, yeah.
If you're lucky.
My oldest is around that, yeah. And she's a whole different breed. She's very responsible, but we often joke, even with her, that it should have been her that got diabetes.
I'm sure she enjoys that joke very much.
Yeah. It's funny because she sees it. She just, every personality is different, but she's a very science-minded, very analytical. I think, somebody would tell her this is what you do, and she would do it. And I think she would also be she's very goal oriented. I think she'd be very driven to like get that A1C down. Like that would be, it would be interesting to her.
Do you find that? Do you listen to the show? I'm sorry.
I do. Yes. Yeah. And I found it very early, like before we left the hospital.
Okay. And I only ask because you talk to adults and they fall into those camps. Like some of them are just like, what, I have diabetes? Watch me knock this down like I knock everything else down. Like, or they're real type A about things, which doesn't always lend to great outcomes because sometimes you can't really absorb the art part of diabetes then when you're trying to follow the numbers too strictly.
Yes.
But so your youngest who has type 1, what's her makeup? Is she kind of free spirited, or is she like?
Yes, she's definitely my free spirit. Yes.
Yeah. And
yeah, she doesn't want to. She wants to be a beat different.
Yeah. I don't know how you explain to a person that when they're at that age and they have that desire that you can't be different if you're not here or healthy.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And it's so, I almost said easy. I don't mean easy, but it's so available, like the health with type 1, you know what I mean? Like for most people. And I think pre-bolusing puts her in the low 6s.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's my biggest frustration. And she gets so, I always, okay, dinner's gonna be ready in 20 minutes. It's probably about 50 carbs. I always provide that information.
Mm-hmm.
But then from there, I mean, I can't do much else.
Yeah.
It feels a little helpless.
You can't do much else because why?
I mean,
what would happen if you walk? What kind of pump does she have?
She's on the Omnipod, and she's literally only been on it for like 4 days.
So
she was MDI until I think she's even just on her very second pump.
Wow.
So yeah, 4 days.
Oh, so you couldn't walk up to her and just like stick her with a needle. All right, that makes sense. But I mean, what would stop you from walking out into the living room next time and going 50 carbs and pushing the buttons while you're saying it and go boom, and then put it down next to her and then watch her have a better outcome with her meal?
Yeah, that would turn into a big power struggle.
Like UFC
she would be
style?
very upset with me that she would say, this is my body, this is my health, this is a me problem, not a we problem. That's one of her favorite lines.
Oh, did she hear that somewhere?
Probably at therapy.
Yeah, you should tell her that's a shut the hell up problem. And
right, I'm like, I paid for that therapy.
Yeah. Do you love sleeping under a blanket? You don't think about it often, but a comforter costs $100. I just wanted to bring that up. Let me explain to you how I made that $100.
Right.
Yeah. It's a me problem. Oh, you just named your episode.
So, yeah. So it would turn into a power struggle, and it would just be a fight.
Have you?
So
can I ask? Are the other two? You have boys or girls?
I have girl, boy, girl.
And you're more West Coast, is that right?
Yes, we're Arizona.
Okay, so you don't have? Do you not have it in you to go shut the hell up?
No, I've done that plenty of times.
Right. And nothing. And does it escalate? Like, is there yelling after that? Does it turn into like
yelling?
Door slamming?
There's been yelling.
There's been yelling. Oh,
yeah.
Everyone listening is like, oh yeah, there's been yelling.
Right. Right.
But it doesn't go like UFC. Like you guys don't start like roundhouse kicking each other, right? So it stays in that space.
It might just turn into her, then just not coming to dinner and just it's just not.
Oh, it turns into I was going to say pouting. That's wrong. Well,
I don't know if pouting is right, but I mean, there have been times where, yes, we have successfully seen the magic of a pre-bolus. And I don't know why she doesn't.
What's the bounce like in her blood sugar?
Doesn't keep doing it.
Because variability,
What's the what?
The variability is super important. Obviously, you don't have it, right? Like the standard deviation and stuff like that. You're bouncing up. She's bouncing up and down. Is it possible she feels like? Is there possible some of this emotion stuff is coming from blood sugar fluctuation?
Probably yes. So like her 3 days. So since she's been wearing the pump, standard deviation is 49. So I mean that's not great, right? But if I go more out to 60 days, we're looking at 70.
Oh, yeah, no, we don't want that.
Right.
Overnight. Oh, do you even get to inspect her blood sugar and make suggestions?
Yes, so we do. She does let us follow her on Dexcom.
Oh, how generous.
And she does let us manage her overnight.
Okay.
So I would say,
Cynthia, let me stop you for a second. Does she allow you? Does she allow you to stay up overnight and not sleep while she's sleeping?
Yes,
that's so generous. Kind of her? Oh my God, it's really generous.
She is. She's so kind.
Yeah, yes. I guess that's a you problem.
Right, that's a me problem. She would tell me I don't have to, and she, in fact, if I ever were to say, I lost a lot of sleep last night trying to manage your blood sugar, she would say, you don't have to. I'm fine. Just leave it alone.
Oh, she doesn't understand at all.
She just doesn't get it. And I have to remember that her brain is not fully formed.
Yeah, right. So,
But
yeah.
I think that's how her A1C has stayed in the sevens, because I manage her overnight.
Oh, I bet you're right, because I think that's the first place to steal A1C is overnight.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, so where does she sit? Does she sit stable overnight, or does that lack of pre-bolusing in a mealtime just make that a mess into the 2 a.m. hour?
Well, boy, these last 4 days with that Omnipod, she's been awfully stable overnight.
Oh, good. Excellent.
So that has helped for sure. But I would say normally when she was MDI, I would have to do a correction in the night it's like we couldn't seem to ever find that magic number with the long-acting insulin to keep her stable.
I hear you.
So I'm not sure I don't know if it's just the formulation of the insulin, but it seemed like we could never get it high enough to keep her level.
I see. Are you going to work on like where has she been stable these last few nights? Like at a number?
Well, right now she's 73.
Look at you.
But most of the night she was, and she's about to get up, which is probably good. I mean, she's 73, but she's very steady right now. But she spent most of the night in the 90s.
Nice. I like that. Now she'll get up and what about her eating? Is she like what kind of foods does she gravitate towards?
Carbs. Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely a typical teenager, and eats a lot of fast food, and likes those sugary coffee drinks that just kill me.
I don't like those at all. I don't like the way they smell.
She can drink them. Yeah.
I've never drank them, but I don't like the way they smell.
Yeah.
I've never had coffee in my life ever once.
Okay.
So
I love the smell of coffee, but I'm not a coffee drinker either.
Then you start sweetening it up and putting like syrup in it and stuff, and I'm like, oh.
Right. I mean, she's basically drinking a milkshake when she goes to get these drinks, and I'm like, it just kills me again that she won't pre-bolus for them. She does bolus for them. I mean, she does cover for them, but.
So these drinks are paid for by you?
No, I would never pay for something
so she's
like
got
that.
A job?
She does a lot of kind of side jobs, and she worked at Target for a while. Yeah, she's had some jobs.
Yeah, it's tougher when they have.
Yeah, because I would never pay for that. I won't buy things like that for the house.
Right.
I mean, I don't necessarily, I'm not against carbs, but I won't have those types of things that are going to spike her blood sugar excessively in the house. Because if she would deal with them, I would be happy to buy her cereal if she was going to cover for it correctly.
Cynthia, you
but
seem
she's
like
not.
A very common sense person. Am I missing something, or is this just really like it's her age, you think?
I really believe it is her age. And yeah, I mean, you talk to a lot of people that will say in my teenage years, I was so horribly managed, right?
Right.
And I just think I'm going through it. And maybe it was when she was diagnosed, because they did. And we encouraged it for her to really just right away take it and it be hers.
It's hard though. I mean, it is difficult.
It's hard.
Because there's the other side of it, right? Is if you encourage her to take care of it and she takes care of it, and then she goes to the endo and the endo goes, oh my God, you're doing great. Then she thinks, I took care of it. And if you that is my major frustration. Right. Because had you stepped in first, you could have set a baseline for expectation.
Correct.
That's where the doctor would have said, oh my God, you're doing great. And then that would have been, isn't that crazy? And then that would have been held as the expectation.
I think that's exactly where we went wrong. And now there's no going back from that until I do think she's going to eventually get it. She's a really smart girl, but I just think she's like, Mom, the doctor says I'm doing great. Yeah,
the doctor's the rate limiting factor here. I don't like her. That's what
I don't either. And luckily she is a pediatric endo. And so she will have to find somebody new soon. So I'm hoping that we can find somebody that will say, I mean, I will say at this last appointment, the doctor did say, now that you're 18, you really need to have a lower A1C, which just blew me away. Why does it matter if you're 18 or not?
It
that your
doesn't.
A1C can be higher.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't know, Cynthia, that when you're younger, the laws of physics and other things don't even apply to you. You're just fine. They used to say that. I would go in with Arden and I'd be like, listen, this isn't right. You know, her blood sugars are all over the place. And they go, oh, it doesn't matter now. I was like, what now? Like, that doesn't seem like it makes any sense. And
damage is damage, right?
They would say that, oh, she's so young, it won't matter. It's like, it feels opposite of what you're saying is true. And so I just ignored them and went on to do try other things, obviously, that led us all here. But right. It is fascinating that they're like, oh, they're young. Like, what does that mean? Does it mean make sense of that for me? Like, what does that mean? You know, and there's no context. No one knows what they're talking about. I mean, correct. Honestly, if there'd be no podcast if people knew what they were talking about, because you'd right. go to the doctor and the doctor would say sensible things that made sense to you, that worked out and were real. And then things would happen after that and you'd have success and yay, but that's just not how it works. And then your daughter gets right. sucked into it and believes it. I would love to talk to right. I would love to talk to a kid who there's no way anyone's ever going to come on like that. Right. But like, how great would it be for me to sit with your daughter and be like, that's bullshit. Like what that doctor said that's not true. Like you are listening.
I'll suggest it.
Yeah. You are listening to a moron that just has more college education than you do. Like that's it.
Right.
Who would say that?
I mean, I will say, I do think because once you're in the type 1 world, you know all these other people that are in it. And I'm guessing the majority of her patients are not as well controlled as my daughter, which just blows me away.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. So your daughter's not a bank robber, so we can let her petty larceny go. You know.
Exactly. Wow. Right. I think that is what they see though, because she comes in to see my daughter and it's like they're all happy. Like, oh, it's a relief. I don't have a kid in here who's got a 12 A1C.
No, what they have in there is a kid whose mom is up all night trying to steal A1C right. overnight. So that'll be great. Correct. You'll be dead soon. And, right. just exhausted, falling over on your
From
face.
Lack of sleep.
Yeah,
right.
It won't even be like a medical problem. You'll fall over and kill yourself, right. From being tired. And then your daughter's A1C will go to 11.
Right.
And then what's she going to say then to her?
Yeah. So she actually hasn't even had her A1C checked since COVID. So since last May, it hasn't been checked and it kills me. But I mean, at least we have the Dexcom numbers, so we have a good idea what it is. But I think she's going to have it taken this next time.
Cynthia, you've made me upset. First thing back from my vacation. But with this conversation, I know this happens and I know that I shouldn't rant about it too much. But I'll tell you, there's a doctor coming on pretty soon, an endo, and it'll happen way before in the timeline before your episode goes up. But, one of the things she said in her note to me was, I started listening to the podcast and I love the things you were saying about diabetes, made me feel more like I wanted to try harder, I think is how she put it.
Oh,
and except she called what I was saying doctor bashing. So I would say this, if you're a doctor and you feel like you're being bashed right now, you're just not doing a very good job. That's not my fault. You know what I mean?
Right.
Think of me as a sports commentator in this moment, and you're a wide receiver and people keep hitting you in the hands with the ball and you don't catch it. I'm not bashing you. You're not catching the ball. There's something different there. Like holding somebody to account is not the same as bashing someone.
Right.
And this is just, you can see the lineage of how your daughter got put in this mindset.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just my biggest frustration is I feel like, yes, she's told the person who's supposed to be the expert that she's doing a fabulous job and they wish all her patients were as good as her. And there's nothing I can do at that point.
Yeah.
Besides look for a new doctor, which I would be, except now it's kind of out of my hands.
You should have looked at the doctor and said, that's actually a you problem. Don't use,
that would have been perfect.
Don't use my daughter's health and welfare to make you feel better about what's happening here. And don't be lazy, by the way. I'll give you this. Most people probably aren't going to listen to good advice or common sense or anything like that. I'm aware of that. If okay, so we'll let that be. But that doesn't excuse you as the doctor from saying it. Like, it's still your job to say it. You might expect that they're not going to listen, and maybe they won't, but that's not an excuse for you not to tell them. You have to, that is free. It's not a waste of time. That's your job. And you don't get to make yourself feel better by telling Cynthia's daughter that her 7A1C is great, because it's good and it's okay and it's not terrible, but it's not great.
Right.
My daughter's A1C is not great, and it's in the mid 5s. It's really, really, really good, but it's not great. There's plenty of people walking around who don't eat carbs whose A1C is 4.8. Their A1C is great. You know what I mean? Like, and I just mean, like, you have to look at the scale. I mean,
well,
and
I feel like I wish they would also look at the variability. I feel like all the doctor would look at would be the A1C.
Yeah,
but didn't look at the reports that they have access to. I have shared all that information.
Oh, so that's
through
what's
Dexcom
happening?
that they should see these 300-400s that she's sitting at for hours and hours, and then comes crashing down to these scary lows.
So this doctor's just looking at the A1C.
I think just the A1C.
Well, again, I say malpractice. That's terrible.
Right.
You know, like,
right.
how can you, so it's confirmation bias. The doctor's just saying, look, if I stare at this number, I'm doing a good job for this kid.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Well, do you have a time machine?
I'd like one.
Because if you had one, I could fix this whole thing for you. But
right.
Do you remember the day you met your husband? Because we're gonna need that date while we fix all this.
Right. Right.
No, I listen. I feel for you. It is it's stressful, and it makes you feel like you're failing. I would imagine it makes you feel like you're failing on a couple of levels, which is terrible for you because you have, it sounds like, all good intentions, and you're going about it the right way. You are being respectful of her and how she feels. And I mean, that is definitely part of it. And you can't ignore, like, I want to be clear, like, we've joked around a little bit in this hour. Like, you can't ignore how your daughter feels. You'll push her away. You know?
Right.
So you have to navigate this whole thing without it taking so long that your daughter ends up on the podcast when I'm 60 and she's 27 going, I really wish I would have listened to my mom. And now I get these, you know, this happens to me and the doctor says, maybe I'm going to have to get that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, because that does happen. People come on here and tell that story. I ignored my parents when I was 16 and now I'm 30 and I'm getting injections in my eyes to try to slow down retinopathy. People have come on here and talked about that. So
that are not that old. And I do think, though, even though her A1C is okay, she does have these high highs that last and are doing damage.
Right.
So,
and how do you get through to her on that?
Right.
I don't know. I really
you don't know. That's why I called
you're
in.
On here just for this. I mean, did you try bribing her with a big enough idea? Did you go?
I've tried so many different bribes. She doesn't seem bribable anymore. We seem like we've lost that ability.
Yeah, I would imagine, because the bribing feels like a loss of power too.
I think that's exactly it. You think you just nailed it.
Yeah, you're giving up if you take it.
Yes, she just is like, I'm going to do what I want to do at this point. And then having a job now, they're harder to bribe when they have their own money.
Yeah, she feels autonomous. It's good.
Right.
By the way, these are all good things.
Right. They're all great things.
Right.
If you took away the diabetes, and that's probably the biggest frustration too, is, I feel like our relationship would be way better. Her health would be better. Her mental health would be better. It's a big thing for a teenager to take on.
And you've said that to her. Like, in that way?
Oh, yeah.
Like, everything gets better if you just in a slightly different timing fashion, use your insulin.
Right. Yeah. And she knows, I mean, you catch her sometimes when, her blood sugar's stable and you can have a more calm conversation
Mm-hmm.
that she seems to get it, which I think is when she did agree to wear a pump to try that for a while. That you think, okay, this is going to go better. And it maybe will for a day or two. And then she just doesn't want to. It's just because it is so day in, day out. I mean, not only day in, every hour you're having to do something.
Yeah. I have to say I have a ton of compassion for her too. It just,
Right.
it has to be so incredibly difficult to be in that
I do as
situation.
well. Yeah. I mean, if I could take it just like any other parent, if we could have it instead of our children, we would.
I wonder if you could do something where you did it like every other day. Like one day it was her and then the next day it was you. And like if you could ease into it somehow.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, she kind of lets us do the overnight, although I feel like that might be kind of going soon too, because, she doesn't want us in her room at night, and she's an adult now, and now she's graduated from high school. And
Well,
so
what was I going to say there? Every other night.
I'm hoping that finding a new endo will make a difference. And I'm really going to do a lot of research and trying to find somebody that I think will set a little bit higher bar.
Do you think if she was here right now and you weren't here and I just said to her, hey, be honest, like, you should be doing that, right? She'd just say, oh yeah, I know.
Yep.
Yeah. Do you think she's screwing with you a little bit?
Maybe like a little bit of just showing that she doesn't have to do what I say.
Right. That this is her side of the power struggle.
Yeah.
Right. She's
yeah,
like, here's how I'll assert and try to get the upper hand. I know people don't think of it that way. And you probably aren't consciously thinking of it that way, or maybe even subconsciously.
And I don't think she would be consciously doing it either.
No,
She's
it's just
not
how it goes.
Vindictive person. She's very kind and good person. But
I want to say I don't mean power struggling like in like a nasty way. It's just a very human thing to want to be in control, right?
They just want to grow up.
Yeah. No, even the littlest things. Like, have you ever restacked dishes in the dishwasher on somebody?
No, but my husband does it to me all the time.
Yeah, because in his mind, you're terrible at it. But do your dishes come out? Do your dishes come out clean?
They come out just fine.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. That's literally what I'm talking about. Is that just everyone thinks that their thing should be in charge, that their thoughts and their ideas, that's what should be happening because that's what I think is right. And it's got to be like animal instincty inside of you, right? Like and it works. Like it keeps us all alive, trusting yourself. Because I say this sometimes, but like think of the alternative. Think of every idea your husband had, he doubted. You wouldn't want that guy to be your husband, but you also don't want it to be so strong that he's like, look what she put the dinner plates again. Oh my goodness, what a moron. Let me move. You know what I mean? Like, obviously this is the way it has to go. Like that's the wrong side too, but it drifts into people's lives like that. So is the answer here for you, if you love something, set it free? But the problem is, I think the rest of that saying is if it doesn't come back, you have to hunt it down and kill it. So, is more freedom what she needs? And how long would it take if that happened for it to work into good health?
Right.
Like,
maybe you could call her. How bad do I let it get?
Well, maybe you call her bluff. Maybe you go, you know what? You are right. I can't believe it. You don't say it with the sarcasm in my voice, but like, you are right. You're an adult and this is all yours. So, I'm going to let you take care of it. I trust you. I wonder how quickly she'd be like, whoa, where are you going? Wait, because maybe that's your power move then. Maybe that's your power move. To get your power back, maybe you have to give it to her. I know for sure that is the plot of a lot of science fiction movies.
Okay.
So maybe that'll work in real life. You give her the weapon. It's hers now.
Maybe.
And then
but how many nights do I let her float at 250 then all night long?
I don't know.
Before I go do something about it.
Did you see the Facebook post in the private group where there was a kid that wasn't managing themselves well, and they had got like super high. And some of the adults, this is where I love the group, because the group is pretty mixed between adults with type 1 and parents of type 1. It's a great atmosphere if you can be open-minded, because you will get different perspectives. And a couple of longtime type 1s came in and said, oh, let it happen. Let her throw up. And then, parents were like, you can't tell them to let her kid go into DK. And they thought it was lovely. And it wasn't fighting. It was like, it was a good spirited conversation. And while I don't think, I did not read any intention from the adults like, oh, let your kids go into DKA as a punishment system so they can see what it's like. But what they said was, from their perspective, some kids don't listen. Trust me, maybe they were one of them. And the only thing that brought them around was seeing the end of the tail that you wag your finger about. And you're like, you don't understand, this is bad for your health. But you never let them get to that part because obvious reasons. And so they don't really believe it happened. So there were a couple of adults who were like, look, blood sugar will get high, start throwing up, and, of course, you're going to go into DKA really quickly. It's super scary and very, very, bad and not medical. And like, no one's telling anybody to do that. But it was from a theoretical point of view that they were having the conversation. And I'm not saying let your daughter like spiral into DKA, certainly, because there are other problems that come with higher blood sugars. Like, she might become more resistant and less easy to deal with than she already is if her blood sugars go up and up and up. But I'm wondering if she isn't still young enough that, faced with the real possibility of managing this 24/7 on her own, if she wouldn't say, well, I don't really want, like, because she lets you have the evening, right? Like, blah, blah, blah. Why don't you tell her, look, I'm happy to do overnight, but I want to pre-bolus the meals for a month just so we can see how it goes. Like, maybe you could actually get her variability down, and maybe she'll be more clear-minded.
Yeah, I feel like she would be.
So, I mean, do you think you could get her to just a month, like a trial?
No.
Really? What if she didn't own shoes?
No, I mean, we've tried that. I've tried just to get her to do one meal, and every now and then she will, or sometimes she'll just do it, and then dinner takes longer than she thought it was going to.
All right. How much older is her older sister?
9 years.
You think she could help her?
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, her siblings have been super supportive.
Forget supportive. Do you think you can get to the older sister and tell her, look, this is what's going on. I need you to back channel this?
Maybe.
That's how wars are won. Seriously, all the time. They're never won the way you think they are. So, I mean, maybe if she'd listened to her more, and it's got to come from a very like, hey, how you doing? How's everything? How's the diabetes going? Like, you can't be like, mom said that you're a schmuck. Like, it can't be like that, right? But maybe a voice other than yours. How about your husband? Does he try? Does he try, or is he just like, oh my God, please, I'm so close to retirement? Like, what's the vibe from him?
No, he's super supportive of me and her. I feel like he's sort of this like neutral field of
Switzerland's not going to help.
Like he'd like her to do, he does see that he wishes she would do more too. And he helps with the, nighttime stuff as well. So yeah, but he does remain more neutral. He doesn't get as emotionally involved as I tend to.
I don't direct this at you, and I genuinely am not directing this at you, but you brought it up, so I'm going to like go a little deeper into it before I'm assuming you have to go to work before I let you go. That idea of like, oh, everyone's so supportive. I don't know what that means. Like, if you're not in there throwing hands with me, then I don't care that you're standing behind me going like, go, go, go. I don't want go, go, go. I want get in here and help me hold this alligator down while I tie its mouth shut. Like, don't just tell me you've got my back. Like, get in the fight a little bit. And I hear that from so many people. Oh, she's so supportive. Or this one's, I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, I'm struggling over here. I need help. I don't need support. Like, when we won't need support? When we're not wrestling the alligator anymore. That's when we'll all just go live our lives. So I just think that, in so many interpersonal relationships, somebody gets tasked with this terrible thing that you have to do, like having this embroiled, conversation with your children you don't want to have. And then there's always a person who stands in the back. And I heard somebody say to me one time, it's not a person who's ever been on the podcast. I'm sure they may never be on the podcast. She said, "Oh, my husband's a good man. He doesn't get involved in this though." I'm like, well, I don't even know what that means. He's a good man. He doesn't hit you and he brings his paycheck home? Like, it's not 1935. Like, how are we judging this exactly? You know what I mean? Like, this person's struggling mightily with a problem that her husband will not get involved in. And yet when it comes up, oh, he's a good guy. I'm like, God, you got to raise your bar a little bit here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what that means. You're having trouble. Like, you need people to help you. Look at you. You're on your own. You're talking to me, trying to figure a thing out. I mean, Cynthia, really, this is a bottom of the barrel move. You're out of ideas.
Couldn't drop much lower.
You're like, I will let my story be fodder for a podcast so that hopefully something comes up in the conversation that might help me. That's desperate.
Right.
I
honestly believe that there are a lot of mothers and probably fathers out there that are in exactly my same position.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no.
Because it's a hard one when these kids that are becoming adults.
Oh, Cynthia, this is happening to everybody, not just you. Yeah. This is happening to absolutely almost everybody, except those of you who are lucky to have some like super type A kid who's just like sees those numbers like a video game and is trying to like put them where they want them. Right.
Yes. And those kids are out there for sure.
Yeah. But for everyone else, this is it. This is the game. Right here. Well, the next time I talk to one of the therapists that come on the show, I'll bring this up as a topic and I'll see what I can do. But I mean, until she's willing to bend, any negotiation needs two sides to be willing. Right.
Yeah. And she has her moments.
Oh, sure.
And so that's why I do believe she's going to get there. I just can't find the right negotiation tactic at this point to get her there sooner. I'd just like to get her there sooner.
I find myself wondering if the adults listening aren't thinking like, oh, just let it go. It'll work itself out. And then there's going to be some who think don't let it go because it's just going to get worse. But I feel for you. And I understand exactly how you feel. I have felt the exact same way. I mean, not the same situation, but I felt the same way.
And even the therapists that, so the professionals that we've turned to, because, I don't happen to have found a therapist that has type 1 or really can understand it. So they probably think I need to back off too.
You're not in California, are you?
We're not.
Oh, okay.
I've heard
because Erica's good.
Erica, yeah.
Yeah, well, right. Because they're not looking
so
at
our endo and a therapist, they're kind of just.
You need allies. You need allies.
I've got no one. It's just me and my husband. He's definitely supportive.
You're paying people to come into the fight, and they're going on the other side.
Right. We're just trying to find that balance of not ruining our relationship with our daughter forever over this.
I appreciate that.
But and then also, again, being, that to me, her health is a non-negotiable. You have to take care of it. And we do have some very strict guidelines on, if you're going to drive our car, your blood sugars need to be here. You need to be doing these things. So
that's candy-ish. I wish you were more East Coast because you would have gotten on top of this a couple of years ago.
I would have.
Yeah.
Okay.
A couple of fearful moments would have snapped her right into place, I think.
Okay.
I'm picturing my father. I haven't told this story in a long time, but I was sick when I was younger, just something simple. And, everything wasn't as great as it is nowadays. And they gave us this giant pill. It was like this dry tablet. It was really hard to swallow. And I balked against swallowing it. And I think the next thing I remember is my dad's finger just like, in my mouth. And then I was like, oh, okay. Guess I can swallow it.
I'm swallowing this.
Thanks a lot. And again, I'm not saying that that's the vibe, but in the 70s, in certain parts of the world, like you didn't get a vote on how this happened. And if I was 18 and my dad was, gone by then, but I don't think it would have mattered to him that I was 18. I certainly don't think so. Around stuff like that, like a medical thing, a safety thing. I think that if I was 25 and I did something, illegal, I don't think it would be met with tell me how you feel. I think it would be met with, something far harsher. And again, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm not even saying that I would do that. I'm just saying that there's somewhere in between where we are now and where we came from. There has to be a balance in there somewhere. Like your daughter, not that I want people to be afraid, but she's not afraid of you at all. Because if she was, she'd bend. You know what I mean? Like there's no, again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying rule by fear. I'm just saying that things have swung so far in another direction that when you get into an untenable situation, you have nowhere to go from here. Like you're now stuck hoping that your daughter figures out that her health and her life are valuable enough to pay attention to this and that she can see through what the doctor's saying and all these other things that I'm pretty sure she's not equipped for. It's a weird world.
It is.
Yeah. You shouldn't have had kids. This was your mistake.
Is that it? It was the third. Maybe I should have stopped it too. Is that what you're saying?
No. Kids are delightful. Like there's just times where it's like, it's so good in the beginning, right? And then like even through the middle, they're like 12, they're amazing. And you even get some good ones that up into the 17 situation. But then right in that space, 18, 21 in there, man. Yeah. And they're really starting to like see things but they don't see enough of it yet to make a full form.
Right.
Thought, you know what I mean?
Yes. They don't really have a full vision, but yet they think they do.
Yeah. And right now, if you're listening and you're 21, you're like, go to hell. But trust me, you were going to get to a spot where you look back on yourself at 21 and think, oh, I didn't know what I was talking about. That's amazing.
Right.
And that's part of the fun of life, actually, except when part of those things can be a medical issue that might cause like real permanent problems. So, wow, I'm sorry. Yeah, I wish I knew what
it's
to
okay.
say.
We're getting through it. And I mean, she's a great kid.
I'm
so
sure.
it's
Of course. I never meant to say otherwise. I hope
No, I don't feel like,
Good. Yeah, I'm sure she's terrific. I'm sure it's going to work out great.
Just makes it so hard is just watching that.
Yeah.
And knowing that there are literally just the pre-bolus alone, I think would keep her out of those 350s, 400s sometimes.
Definitely would.
And then the other thing I just can't understand is she has the Dexcom with these alarms. Like, why are you not responding to the alarms? Just respond to the alarm and then.
Come on, have you ever walked into the house and been like, I can't be the only one hearing that?
Right. Yeah.
But you are.
And then she wants me to bug her less about it. I'm like, so then respond to the alarm.
but you know why you hear it and they don't, right? You hear it because you gave birth to her and you care about her more than anything on the whole planet. That's why. That really is it.
It's true.
It is harder to care about yourself than it is to care about somebody else that's that attached to you. And it's it just becomes the truth. No one's going to care about her the way you do. It just really it ends up being, honestly true. And I'm sure one day she'll meet somebody that is going to care about her a absolute ton. And then one day they'll connect themselves together with family, maybe, and then they'll start having that feeling about each other. But I care about the woman in my house now differently than I cared about her when she was my girlfriend, and differently than I cared about her when I was married to her and we didn't have kids. And that stuff grows, and you're just you're at the pinnacle of that right now. Yeah. You don't want anything bad to happen to her, and you're trying everything you can think of to stop it. And that's the gig, right? That's the whole job.
Right.
Yeah. And the truth is, you don't have any real sway over that with your other two kids either. You're just not seeing it as starkly because it's not medical. Right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. And we definitely went through this with our other two children for sure. That that when they have turned that magical 18 number when they're in high school, and they think that that means that they then should no longer have a curfew or house rules or anything.
Right.
We went through that. It's just on a different level when you introduce diabetes into it.
Yep. No, I hear you. Diabetes sucks. I hear what you're saying. So,
it does, doesn't it?
It really does. Terrible. But we're trying to make it more fun and more accessible and easier with the podcast. That's my goal.
Right. And I do appreciate that. I do find a good sense of community from it. I don't listen to it as much as I did, in the beginning. But so now I watch or listen more to episodes that look like they might apply more to me, or especially product updates. I'm always interested in that, and hoping that Omnipod Horizon will come out sometime soon.
There are people who listen to it like it's religion. There are people who listen just the way you described. I think there are people who stay more in the management topics. There are people who stay out of the management topics and love the conversation. Like, there are people who are going to listen to this and love this. And because it's just a real conversation about anything. Like you and I we could be on a podcast right now that's not about diabetes and just be talking about raising kids and what it's like. And
teenagers,
this conversation would not have been any different. So, So people listen always. As long as you're subscribed in your podcast app.
I am.
That's what matters most. Listening
I
is
have
lovely.
A feeling I will probably transition to listening less and less in the years coming, but it has been a great community resource to me over the years.
I would completely believe and understand that. So, but never unsubscribe, Cynthia, or I will come to your house and take all the knowledge I gave you. I will take it back. Okay.
Okay. I have even subscribed my daughter to it. I don't know that she's listened, but it is subscribed on her phone as well. So there you go.
Oh, I hope she did. Maybe. Listen,
I just hope that one day she'll have nothing to do and she'll be in her podcast app and think, what is this?
These kids, the kids have something to do constantly.
Right.
They are so connected to everything. It's fascinating. What I imagine will happen, listen, if you want to make a prognostication, what's going to happen is what happens to everybody. Something's going to come up in her life that makes her realize that her health is important. And then she will hopefully find good answers to lead her to those things. Like if you listen to everyone, first of all, let me just say this. Cynthia is a sentient being who can do whatever she wants, but you should all be listening to every episode. And so if you listen to those episodes, you'll hear those conversations. You'll hear people having that moment. And it's almost always tied to the concern for another person. It'll be she gets a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever her deal is, and she loves them, and she's like, I want to be healthy and be around for this person. Or, people have babies, and then they're like, oh, I have to be healthier for the pregnancy, and then now I need to be healthy to be here to take care of them. And people, I think, need to be needed. And when they are, then they see themselves as more important all of a sudden. Like, I don't think people see themselves as important until they're tied to love. Is that the right word? Like, I don't know. Like, I guess you can love yourself and have that feeling, but you have to love something deeply enough that you want to be around for it. And I know that's not an absolute, but having conversations with people over and over and over again, if you really dig into what they're saying at some point, I needed to be here. And I realized it. So I'm assuming she'll realize that too. Maybe it'll be art. Maybe it'll be like whatever her love is or something. It doesn't have to be a person. It could be a thing. It could be an idea. It could be a vocation or a calling or something. Mm-hmm. So maybe you just have to let go a little bit and trust the process. That's what we did in Philly. And we're going to win a playoff spot in basketball maybe. Finally.
Yay.
Yeah, trust the process. That's I'm sure most people don't understand what I'm saying now. But we drafted a lot of people and traded them till we got the 5 we wanted. Not the point of this. The point is let go a little bit. Tell her you're concerned and you love her and you're here. She knows you understand it, right? Like the diabetes part? Okay. So she doesn't think that you're inept.
Yes, and I think it's a little frustrating to her how much I understand it. I think she thinks, why are you doing this? You don't have diabetes. Because again, for her, it's a me thing, not a we thing.
So I went away. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize. I went away this week, and Kelly said that in the first 2 days, Arden's like, don't worry, I have my diabetes. And she did a really great job. So, but why did that happen? My wife didn't feel well. And so Arden was like, okay, I'll take this off of her. And then is just doing a very good job of it. And
nice.
Yeah. But again, if Kelly would have kept doing it, then I guess Arden would have kept letting it get done. Because I left. I'm like, I'm out of this. Like, if you need something, let me know.
And do you feel like Arden lets you do that just because you always have? I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, sometimes
what do you think she would be like had she not had diabetes until she was almost 16?
Yeah, I don't know. Oh my God, I probably would have to kill her. I mean, it's illegal to say, but I would probably have to dig a hole on some property somewhere and get rid of it. No, I don't know. Like, I have no way of telling. I mean, if she got it when she was 16, it would have been more difficult. Like, we had, there's a pentameter to our care, right? There's a way it flows and runs.
Exactly,
and it becomes accepted at some point. That's why I said in the very beginning, maybe if you would have like just done it, then there would have been, the power structure would have been in your favor. And then it would have drifted to her instead of it started in her favor. Like, you basically elected an actor as president. And you know what I mean? And now you're the tried and true politician over here going, I don't think you understand how this works. And it's like, too late. I'm in charge, baby. You know, like,
no, but the coach is telling her that she's doing it well.
Yep.
That she's doing a great job. So
and then that's the other side of it. Yeah. She thinks it's all going great. Well, tell her I said it's not going bad. There's nothing to be ashamed of. She's doing well. There's simple improvements to be made that would reap incredible benefits.
I know.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, short of me coming there and living in your house, I don't know what else to do.
Knock some sense into her.
Talked through it. You know, I mean, do you have any idea what you're going to do?
With what? With
all of this? Like, you're going to leave here and think about this. Do you have any idea what you're going to try next? Did anything make more sense than the other thing?
Well, you know, it's funny, the timing and that she's been on the pump for this few days and it's going well. So at this point, I'm sort of trying to back off a little bit more and let her do this pump and just keep being the, you know, hey, if she's eating dinner with us, just keep providing the dinner's ready in 20 minutes and it's 50 carbs reminder.
Have you considered just adding directive to your reminder? So, hey, dinner's in 20 minutes. It's going to be 50 carbs. Bolus now. Just
and I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, she often doesn't, but sometimes she does. I mean, she had a really good meal yesterday. Cool. So, and like I said, it's going a little better, but I probably am. It's summer now. She is graduated, and I probably am going to start backing off more at nighttime and
see what happens next.
Yeah, see what happens.
Yeah. Don't worry.
See how she feels, and maybe just follow up with her about how she feels. And the other thing is, we are looking for a new doctor, right? So I would think those would be kind of our two.
Yeah, maybe you got to let her come to you a little bit on it. So yeah.
Right.
Well, this was fun. And by fun, I mean a clear directive to single people not to have children. I think everyone heard that and they were like, oh my God, that's exactly how I was to my mom. I should avoid children. I would think we've stopped people from having sex right now with this conversation. They're like, it's not worth the risk.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
No, they're worth it. They're all worth it.
It really is. I love having kids, which is why I guess I can like joke about it. But still, I mean, honestly, if you look back,
they're hard.
Cynthia,
it's emotionally exhausting.
If you could find yourself in your early 20s and be like, hey, guess what's going to happen? You'd never believe yourself. You'd be like, that's not going to happen. My kids are cool. I'm cool. It's going to be great. Yeah. Okay, fine. Anyway, good luck with all that. Thank you very much for doing this. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKE GLUCAGON.com/Juicebox. The podcast was also sponsored today by the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. And you could do no smarter thing today than to go to Dexcom.com/Juicebox and get started with the Dexcom G6. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.